Now back to the Bible reading that Sam's going to be taking us through today. So today's reading is from Luke chapter 16. I'll give us a moment to, if you have your own Bibles, to find that spot, or if you're like me and like to follow along on the screen, that's also an opportunity for you too. Luke chapter 16, verses 1 to 15. Jesus told his disciples, "There was a rich man whose manager was accused of wasting his possessions. So he called him in and asked him, 'What is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management, because you cannot be manager any longer.' The manager said to himself, 'What shall I do now? My master is taking away my job. I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. I know what I'll do, so that when I lose my job here, people will welcome me into their homes.' So he called in each of his master's debtors and asked the first, 'How much do you owe my master?' 900 gallons of olive oil,' he replied. The manager told him, 'Take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 450. Then he asked the second, 'And how much do you owe?' 1,000 bushels of wheat,' he replied. He told him, 'Take your bill and make it 800. The master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than are the people of the light. I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it is gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much, and whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So if you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? And if you have not been trustworthy with someone else's property, who will give you property of your own? No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money." The Pharisees, who loved money, heard all this and were sneering at Jesus. He said to them, "You are the ones who justify yourselves in the eye of others, but God knows your hearts. What people value highly is detestable in God's sight." This ends the reading. I'd like to invite up now Sam, who will take us through what this means.
If you go to America and you go to a baseball game, they have this great tradition where if your home side is losing and it's the final inning, you put on the rally cap. The rally cap is simply you grab your own baseball cap and then now you got to do something with it. You've either got to flip it sideways or you flip it upside down and inside out, because what you're saying is this: whatever we're doing right now is not working. Let's flip things around upside down. And maybe that's how life feels for us right now. Whatever we're doing is not working. We're doing what we're told. We're doing whatever we can do. We're doing whatever it takes to be happy. We're chasing our dreams, but somehow we're miserable. We're stressed and we're anxious. What if we have things around the wrong way and we need to flip things around upside down? Well, welcome to our annual Feb Talks. This year for our Feb Talks, we're doing Unleashing the Power of Paradox, flipping the script on an upside down world, looking at how maybe what we've been told is not working and it's time that we flip things around upside down. And to do this, we're looking at stories that Jesus told. And we're using these stories because in these stories, Jesus always has a paradox. And Jesus uses these stories to flip our world upside down. So what can we learn from these stories of Jesus? And in this month, our topics are this. We're going to flip the script on the paradox of freedom. Today, we're going to do the paradox of happiness. Next week will be the paradox of money. And in our final week in February, it will be the paradox of virtue, where maybe just trying to be a good person is not enough. But today is week 2, and our topic is the paradox of happiness. And our question today is this: What do I have to do to be happy? And we're going to try to answer this now in a 25 minute talk, followed by question and answer from you guys. So as I'm speaking, think of whatever question you want to ask, text it to the number on the screen, and we'll do our best to try to answer that question. Now, what do I have to do to be happy? Jesus has just told us the strangest story in the Bible about this dishonest manager. And this is a strange story, but Jesus isn't saying be dishonest like this guy. What Jesus is saying, hey, if even a dishonest guy can work it out, if even a dishonest guy can flip the script, we who are a bit smarter and a bit more honest than this guy, we too should flip the script as well. And in this story, this manager, well, he follows the script, but he also sees the paradox in the script, and he's going to flip the script. So what does he do that we too can learn from in this story? Well, what is the script that we've been given? This is the script that we play. You got to do whatever it takes to be happy. See, in the story, it goes like this. Jesus told his disciples, hey, there was a rich man whose manager was accused of wasting his possessions. There's this rich dude, but he's dishonest. But he's doing it to gain wealth because, hey, in the end, you gotta do whatever it takes to be happy. Now, as parents, how would you complete this sentence? I want my children to be... Oh, I love it, because this is a Chinese church. You don't know what to say. If this was an Anglo church, everyone knows the answer is, I want my children to be happy. But you're Asian, so you want to say, I want my children to be successful. Yes. No, the answer is happy. That's why you came to Australia. That's why you're not raising your kids in Asia. If you want a success, stay in Asia. But no, you came to the West because the Western storyline is you want to be happy. This is the Western storyline. The American Declaration of Independence says this. 250 years ago, they broke away from England for this reason. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. And what are these rights? That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The whole reason why we exist is to pursue happiness. And it's the national mission of the USA to pursue happiness. This is the Western storyline, that you got to do whatever it takes to be happy. And happiness is the ultimate good. It's the ultimate ideal. And if you study philosophy, you know this position is called utilitarianism. Big thinkers are Jeremy Bentham, John Stuart Mill, where the ultimate judge of anything is this making me happy or not? Because if something makes you happy, that's a moral good. But if it makes you unhappy, well, that's morally bad. Happiness is the sole judge of whether something is good or bad. And it's a great storyline. It's the reason why, now, if you're in Asia, you went to your high school counselor, and you say, what should I do for work? She'll say, well, what do your parents want you to do? But if you're in the West and you go to your high school counselor, she'll say, what do you want to do? What will make you happy? It's the ultimate judge of what is good in our Western storyline. And it's a great storyline. Last week we said it's the reason why you can date whoever you want, not who mum and dad tell you to date. It's the reason why you can live in whatever city you want to live in, not where mum and dad grew up in. It's the reason why you can choose whatever job you want, not what mum and dad want you to do. But if we're told to be happy, why are we so miserable, exhausted, stressed, and anxious? Well, this brings us to the paradox of happiness. If I'm trying to be happy, why aren't I happy? The story goes like this. So the rich man called in the manager and asked him, what is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management, because you cannot be manager any longer. And the manager said to himself, oh, what shall I do now? My boss is taking away my job. I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. Somehow the wheels fall off this person's story. Whatever he's doing to be happy no longer works. And for us, it's the same thing. Sooner or later, the wheels will fall off. And whatever we're doing to be happy will no longer work. Why? Well, this is the paradox of happiness. Paradox number one, what they call hedonic adaptation. Well, what is hedonic adaptation? Well, the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is, I make myself a cup of coffee, and when I drink it, I can feel the buzz go all the way from my head to my toes. At 10 in the morning, I have my second cup of coffee. This time, not so much buzz. At 2 in the afternoon, I have my third cup of coffee. This time, no buzz, no effect. Well, what's going on? I've adapted. My body has got used to the coffee, and it no longer gives me a buzz. It's the same with everything in life. It's why when you push a kid on a swing, they keep saying, higher, higher, higher. And you've got them almost horizontal, and they're going to do the loop. You say, I can't get you any higher. And they say, but it has to go higher. Why? They have adapted to it as the new norm. It's why when you were a kid, you say to your parents, please give me that toy. Your parents will say, you're only going to get sick of it. And you say, no, this time for sure, I will never get sick of it. They go, you're going to get sick of it. No, never. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, you were sick of your new toy. But the same thing continues when we become grown-ups. This is Jonathan Haidt, secular Jewish thinker, teaches at Duke University. He put out the happiness hypothesis. And in this book, the happiness hypothesis, Jonathan Haidt says we all do the same. We adjust to a new situation and then we get used to it. So we can get a new car and there's a burst of happiness. Or we get a new job and there's a burst of happiness. We get a new romantic partner and boom, there's a burst of happiness. But then we recalibrate, we adjust to it as the new normal, and within 2 years, we're back to where we were before. This is a study done in Germany. They looked at marriage and life satisfaction. So on the vertical graph, life satisfaction. On the horizontal graph, the years you live. So you begin life 3 out of 10 in terms of life satisfaction. And you grumble and go 3 out of 10. Then you meet someone and boom, now you're 5 out of 10. You get married. On that day, you're almost 7 out of 10. 1 year after marriage, you're back to 4 out of 10. 2 years after marriage, you're back to where you were. 5 years after marriage, you're less happy than you were when you were single. You married guys. It's true, isn't it? You're wishing right now you were single again, because how good was it when you were single, right? And every married guy right now, you are so poker faced right now. You're, that's not me. That's not me. Trust me, not me. No, not me. But look, there's the data. We are less happy because we adapt to a new situation as a new norm. Whatever gives us a burst of happiness wears off after 2 years. Paradox number 2, it's called the arrival fallacy. I'm getting this from Arthur Brooks, who writes in The Atlantic. He's a happiness expert, has a podcast called How to Build a Happy Life, teaches at Harvard. He talks about the arrival fallacy, where we're like dogs chasing a car. The thrill, the happiness is in the chase. But once we get what we want, what do I do now? Suddenly you're not happy when you get what you find. This picture is from a long time ago. It's when Australia used to be good at rugby. This is a very long time ago. And it shows the Australian captain, Nick Farr-Jones, with the Australian winger, player of the series, David Campese, winning the Rugby World Cup. And it's the best thing you could do. You beat every other nation in the world. You beat England in the grand final at Twickenham, the home of rugby in England, in front of the Queen. The Queen gives you the cup. You have won the Rugby World Cup. You are the best team in the world. You are the best player in the world. Nick Farr-Jones, the guy on the right, in a BBC interview afterwards, when he was asked, how did that feel when you held the cup up? Nick Farr-Jones said, I felt melancholy because I thought, is this it? This is what we train for? Is this it? I thought it would be something more. Paradox number 3, the hedonic fallacy. This is what philosophers talk about. The hedonic fallacy is this. By looking for happiness, you won't find it. That's the paradox. I was listening to this NPR interview where on National Public Radio, they interviewed a young lady in her 20s, and this is what she said in her interview. We grew up with our parents saying, we just want you to be happy. Be happy. I mean, if your parents tell you to get a job and make money, you know when you've achieved those things. But we grew up with our parents saying, we just want you to be happy. So you end up sitting around being like, well, did I do this thing that my parents told me to do? Like, am I happy? Have I achieved it yet? You're anxious because your parents essentially said to you, the most important thing is for you to be happy. You chase it and chase it, and the chase itself trips you up and makes you less happy. That's the paradox of happiness. By looking for it, you won't find it. And by looking for it, you make yourself more miserable, more anxious, and more stressed. So what can we do to flip the script? Flipping the script, it's actually not about happiness. We've been chasing the wrong thing. In the story, the manager said to himself, I know what I'll do so that when I lose my job here, people will welcome me into their houses. So he called in each of his boss's debtors. He asked the first, hey, how much do you owe my boss? 900 gallons of olive oil, he replied. The manager told him, well, take your bill, sit down quickly, make it 450. Then the manager asked the second, how much do you owe? 1,000 bushels of wheat, he replied. The manager told him, hey, take your bill, make it 800. The boss commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than are the people of the light. I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves so that when it's gone, you'll be welcomed into eternal dwellings. This guy suddenly flips the script and he gets it. He's been investing in all the wrong things. He should have been investing in relationships. And Jesus isn't saying be dishonest like this guy, but he's saying, hey, he's worked out the value system. We too can work out the value system. So flipping the script, number one, it's actually not about happiness. It's about relationships. Now think of all the things that we do that make us happy. There's food. Oh, how happy does that make you feel, right? There's watching movies and there's traveling. But did you notice all three of these things, food, movies, and travel, they're fun to do every now and then by yourself when you want introvert time, but they're much more fun when you're sharing the moment with someone else. And if you do find yourself by yourself, what do? You're always taking selfies and photos of the food so you can upload it on social media. Hey, look at me, look at me. I'm eating pancakes because you want to share the moment with someone. This is Sophie Scott on a TED Talk, What Makes Us Laugh. She's a neuroscientist. She says we're 20 times more likely to laugh at something if we're with somebody that we know, love, and trust. See, it's not what we do, it's who we're with that makes the difference. And if you listen to me a lot, you know I love quoting this guy. It's Robert Waldinger in the most watched TED Talk of all time. What makes a good life? And he talks about a famous Harvard study, which I think is now 75, 80 years old, where they trace the lives of more than 70 men over the course of more than 7 years, and they look for the correlation with happiness. And they found the number one correlation between happiness and how you live. The number one correlation was not whether you had $1 million or not. The number one correlation with happiness was not whether you had paid off your house or not. The number one correlation with happiness was not whether you were CEO of a company or not. The number one correlation with happiness and a long life was the quality of your relationships. Do you have somebody in your life? Not romantic, it could be a friend, but it's not what we do, it's not what we own. It's, is there a somebody in my life to share this moment with? Flipping the script, number two, it's not about happiness, it's actually about purpose. I have a friend called AJ. AJ and I used to play a lot of rugby. We played a lot of rugby today. But one day I asked AJ, hey, how's the rugby going? He said, I stopped playing. I said, why'd you stop playing? He said, I was in the middle of a game. I was at the bottom of a scrum. Someone was standing on top of me. And I said to myself, why am I here? Like, I don't have to be doing this. There's no reason I'm playing rugby. No one's telling me to play rugby. I don't have to do this. So once I realized there was no reason why I was doing it, I stopped doing it. See, there was no purpose. There was no reason. We actually need a reason for what we do. This is Paul Dolan. He has a PhD in happiness. This is his book, Happiness by Design, Finding Pleasure and Purpose in Everyday Life. Paul Dolan says, you know what? It's not about happiness. It's about purpose. And he says, you know, there are things that we do that give us pleasure, but they have no purpose. So eating a pizza by yourself, watching TV on a Friday night gives you pleasure, but there's no purpose. If that's all you do every Friday night, your life ends up being empty and unfulfilled. But he says there are things that have purpose that have no pleasure, but they give us happiness. And he says, like studying for an exam, or helping a friend move house, or giving birth to a child. That's got purpose, no pleasure, but it will make you happy. Why? Because it's about purpose, not pleasure. Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor, writes his book, Man's Search for Meaning. He says it's about meaning, it's about purpose. And he tells a story in this book about two fictional ladies. It's a parable. He says two ladies. One lady, through the fortunes of life, she's born good-looking and wealthy. The other lady, through the misfortunes of life, when she grows up, she gives birth to a child with profound disabilities. At the end of this lady's life, she's going to go, what was all that about? I had a lot of money, I went to a lot of parties, and I flirted with a lot of men. But what was that all about? Because it ends up being self-absorbed and unfulfilling. This lady, at the end of her life, she'll say, wow, I raised a child with profound disabilities. Wow. And she will have had a fulfilling life because she had a purpose and she lived a story bigger than her own story. So what we too need is purpose. A story bigger than our own story to live for. But what is our purpose? Like, where does purpose come from? To have purpose, you need design, like a reason to be here. But to have design, you need a designer, someone who designed us. We need to know our designer to know why we're here, to know our purpose in life. And that's what Jesus promises that he is. In the Bible, there's a verse that describes who Jesus is. And he uses a Greek word, logos. And it says, the logos, Jesus, became flesh. He became a human and lived among us. He became one of us. And we can translate logos many ways. But the Greeks also understood logos to mean design. The design became flesh. Jesus is our reason for being here, and he became one of us. And if we can know Jesus, not only will we have the ultimate somebody to share our life with, but we'll also know why we're here, and we have his bigger story to live for. To remember our original question was this: well, what do I have to do to be happy? And today we've looked at the script we get given. It's you've got to do whatever it takes to be happy. We've seen the paradox. If I'm trying to be happy, why aren't I happy? And I'm asking us now to flip the script. It's actually not about happiness. It's about living for others. It's not about happiness, but living for a bigger story than just your own. And I'm also saying it's not about happiness, but living in relationship with Jesus and for Jesus. You know, if you try to chase a rainbow, you can never find it. It just keeps moving further and further away. But did you know the rainbow itself only exists because in the middle of a rainbow is the sun. In the middle of that arc is the sun. You can chase the sun instead. And it's the same for us. We can keep chasing happiness, but it'll keep moving further away. But instead, we can chase the source of happiness. and that's Jesus, the Son. Maybe you've heard this story before, but a while ago, it was a weekend, and my wife and I were cleaning the house. And I hate cleaning. It's just soul destroying. It just sucks the life out of you. So I said to my wife, hey, I've got a great idea. How about you keep cleaning, and I'll go for a surf, and afterwards we can have dinner and celebrate. And she gave me the you can go if you want to answer. And to you single guys, that sounds like a yes. Go if you want to. Yes. You married guys know, no. That is a no answer disguised as a yes answer. It says go if you dare. And so I didn't dare. Because I knew no matter how good the surf was, if my relationship wasn't right, it wasn't going to be happy at all. It's not about what we do. Is there somebody in your life to share that moment with? When I was single, I actually did a 5-week ski instructor's course in Whistler, Canada. That meant I went skiing every single day for 5 weeks in a row while living on snow at Whistler. Every morning, my chairlift ride would take me to work, and I would see the Canadian Rockies around me. It was gorgeous, and I did it every day for 5 weeks in a row. But after about only 1 week, I thought, this is pointless. What am I doing this for? I'm lonely. There's no reason for doing this. The most pointless sport in the world is skiing. Because if you don't take the chairlift up, you don't have to come down. So every time you catch a chairlift, you think, why am I doing this? If I didn't do this, I could just stay at the bottom. Why am I doing this? This is pointless. And I remember after 1 week, I flipped over the pages of my Bible, and it fell open on this page where it just said to God, how lovely is your dwelling place, Lord Almighty. My soul yearns, even faints for the courts of the Lord. My heart and my flesh cry out for the living God. Better is one day in your courts than 1,000 elsewhere. And I just realized at that moment, you know what? I'm hungry. I'm hungry for God. And once I started worshiping God again, I could enjoy the beauty of the mountains again, see it as a gift from the giver. Worship the giver, and then you can enjoy the gift. In my house, I have many bottles of really good wine, like really, really good wine. And people often ask, well, why haven't you drunk the wine yet? And I always say, well, if it's good wine, you have to wait. You have to wait for the right people to drink it with, and you have to wait for the right occasion. It's not what you do. There has to be a who and a why as well. And it's interesting that Jesus in the Bible, when he tries to sum up what a relationship with Jesus is like, 2 of his biggest images for what it's like to know Jesus is wine and the feast, the banquet. Jesus says, hey, know me and I will bring the party. I will bring the feast, and I'll be the guy you can share the wine with. So in the end, it's not what we do, it's not what we own that will make us happy. It's do we have a who and do we have a why? And Jesus offers to be that ultimate who and the ultimate why in our life.
Just Andrew.
No, I won't be doing Q&A with myself. We do have Sam coming up. Thanks, Chris. Awesome. So, Sam, another amazing talk this Sunday. Wow. I think you've given us a lot to think about, and I think it really rings true when we think about those. I've written these down because it's a lot to fit in your mind, right? So when you think about those things of hedonic adaptation, when you think about the arrival fallacy, and you think about the hedonic fallacy. So hedonic adaptation, let me just see if I've got these right, right? Hedonic adaptation, it means like, you get something that gives you this boost of happiness, but then you want it again, and so you go back for more. It's like the coffee example, and then you go back for more, and it's increasing its effect decreases and
Diminishing
decreases.
returns.
Diminishing returns. Each time you
Yeah.
do it, you think, wow, that made me really happy. I want to do it again. And then, wow, that actually wasn't as good as the first time. And then it becomes meh. Like doesn't do it for you
You
anymore.
adapt to it, and it becomes a new normal. Whatever was amazing about it now just becomes baseline for you.
And it's like that with everything,
Yeah.
right? It just happens like you just adapt, and you need a bigger and bigger hit of whatever it is, right? And then you realize it doesn't work anymore. So you're always seeking something else, something bigger, something more. And then a rival fallacy is like you chase and chase this thing, it's the dog chasing the car, the Nick Farr Jones and the World Cup, where when you get it, you go like, well, I worked so long for this, and what is it?
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
And then the last one, the hedonic fallacy, is actually even the implicit chasing of happiness means we're not going to get it.
Yeah, that's right. By looking for happiness, the great irony is you won't find it.
You won't find it. So
you're not meant to chase it.
These are the kind of the things we need to flip the script on and realize it's profound. Life is profoundly counterintuitive, right? It doesn't work the way we think. So I think, you've really, hacked the system for us here and given us this insight into, wow, actually that totally makes sense. And I think all of those things speak to the truth that we all observe in life. So I want to thank you for that. Do have a few questions for you. Question one is, okay, so I guess I want to also get the context. You've given us this, this answer that we actually find happiness in relationships and purpose, in finding relationships and purpose, and we find ultimate relationships and purpose in Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus is the one we're made for a relationship with, and Jesus is the one who gives us ultimate meaning and purpose in life because he made the world, he made us, he loves us, and he wants the best for us. So we need these relationships and purpose with Jesus. So the follow-up question here is, well, according to the Bible, how do I go about finding and discovering that real purpose in Jesus for myself, that individual purpose that I have? How do I find that according to the Bible?
Yeah, and I love the way the Bible puts it. It just says, just call on Jesus. If you search in the Bible, it's a phrase that pops up all the way through the Bible, all through the different books, starting from beginning to the end, that there's this moment where someone would just call on the name of the Lord, it says. Just call on Jesus. So I think we just got to come to this moment where we say, okay, Jesus, if you're real, if you're who you say you are, I want to know you. I just want to join Team Jesus. I want to be loyal to Jesus. And there's going to be a learning curve, but it's just going to begin here. And I'm just going to begin a journey where I know Jesus.
And Ken, I think when I'm digging into this question, I'm thinking it's like kind of thinking, okay, and down when you're trying to find, well, what should I do with my life? What's my purpose? What am I here for? Is there kind of like a little bit of a process to go, hey, we all have to figure out this journey for ourselves. How do we actually work that out? Does the Bible give us any guidance of, having come to Jesus and found that, how do I work this out?
Yeah. So the Bible says there, like it's a journey where bit by bit we're growing and learning more and more about this story bigger than our own story. So the Bible says once you call on Jesus and know him and worship him and be loyal to Team Jesus, Jesus will put his spirit in you and bit by bit reveal more and more about what it means to be someone like Jesus, following Jesus. Also, Jesus' teachings are in the Bible, so we can start reading the Bible for ourselves. But also, it's much easier if you read the Bible with other people, and then so in a community, like in a small group in this church or in this church, would be a great way to explore more and more about what it means to follow Jesus.
Awesome. Thank you. So next question. What would you say to someone who struggles to understand the purpose of life because of the suffering they have gone through?
Yeah, that's right. And so that's what makes suffering, that this moment where, okay, this sucks, this is evil, this is wrong, this is disproportionate, this is unfair. So the hope that keeps us going is I can only know there's a crooked line if there's such a thing as a straight line. So if this is evil, wrong, unfair, that must mean there is a good, just, loving, powerful God. So, in a sense, there's this goodness. So that's a first step. And then also knowing that in the noise, in the Google Street View, we're not going to have the Google World View. And so just trust that there is a world view where there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And right now we're in the middle, but there is a story bigger than our own story. So someone said it will be all right in the end. So if it's not all right, it's not the end yet. We're somehow in the middle of the story, but not the end of the story. But also, the problem is we don't know the reason why we're suffering. And the Bible just reassures us, whatever that reason is, God has a reason, and it's such a loving, powerful reason that even Jesus himself entered our storyline. He too suffered along with us. So whatever that reason is, it's so powerful that even Jesus had to suffer. And Jesus suffers alongside. And maybe that's the other thing we can say. We don't suffer alone. The reason why we visit friends in hospital when they're sick isn't because we think we can heal them, but so they know they're not suffering alone. And Jesus comes and he's with us. And I think that's one of the best things about the Christian worldview, where other worldviews say suffering's an illusion, it doesn't exist, get over it. Or other worldviews say sufferings are the result of a capricious God who doesn't care. But with Jesus, you get a God who does care. So the picture we see of Jesus is Jesus hanging on a cross. And I think I've shared before, I was listening on a podcast, and many of us are Asians, and I'm Asian, so I'm not trying to have a thing against Asians here. But this woman, she was Asian, she said, I had to decide whether I was going to follow Buddha or Jesus. And the picture of Buddha was, Buddha says suffering is an illusion. It's in your mind, get over it. That's enlightenment. And the picture of Buddha is he's very round, he's very well fed. That's what, this is the Buddha. Like, he's not suffering. Whereas Jesus says, no, suffering is real. I'll suffer alongside you. And this image of Jesus is one who suffers.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful, isn't it? Like, often the flip side of our search for happiness is that problems struggle with suffering, struggle with pain and difficulty of life. Life has a lot of hardship. But this is the beauty, isn't it? I guess of those things you pointed out of meeting Jesus and God who loves us and who has a real purpose for us, that he actually does love us even through our suffering, and that he's got a good purpose for it, even through our suffering. So that's a really beautiful answer. I think you've really spoken to the heart of this person's question. So next question. We've got two more questions.
Sure.
I think we're okay for time. We gotta get the accelerator on here.
I'll give you a very short answer, whatever the question is.
Okay, let's go. How do we unpack Luke 16:9, using worldly wealth to gain friends for yourself so that we will be welcomed into eternal dwellings? And this is kind of actually a two-part question, so that'll speed things up. And how do we reconcile this with other parts of the Bible that say friendship with the world is enmity with God? Oh, okay.
So Jesus is using that story. So he's already flagging. There's a very dishonest guy. So he's not saying do whatever this guy does, but he's saying if even a dishonest guy can work out, oh my gosh, I've been banking on the wrong things, worldly wealth, when I should have been looking after friendships, relationships, and my long-term future. Not where I am now, but where I will be in 10, 20 years' time. So how much more should you people who are not dishonest, who already know it's not about worldly wealth, how much more should you look after relationships, the church, but also your long-term future? Where will you be in 10 years, 20 years, and where will you be in the life to come? That's what it's saying.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam. Let's hear for Sam. What
All
an
right,
amazing
thank you.
talk.
Thanks.
Thank you.